A closer look at Jin Ping Mei Chapter 17. Yu Dao is to read the songbook while riding a donkey. Throughout Li Ping'er's life, he was always oscillating between eating and being eaten. In the first half, those who were given free rein were the weak. In the second half, they were given free rein. It can be said that the bottle is inserted, and its name is a one-word evaluation. She was Liang Zhongshu's concubine at first. Liang is the son-in-law of Master Kai, and he belongs to the tracheitis type who eat soft food. It is a helpless thing to eat people's food and obey others. It only drags down Li Ping'er. In order to avoid being beaten to death and buried in the garden as flower fertilizer, he had to spend his energy on making money to compensate for his shortcomings. This actually has its origin. Wealth is often an external extension of lust. It is the same model as the later eunuch who left a large amount of treasure to Li Ping'er. So when Liang Zhongshu fled in panic with only his wife, the value of 100 large Western beads and a pair of sapphires reflected the emptiness of Huazi later. We know that men cannot be relied on, but we still have to rely on men. This is Li Ping'er's tragedy, and it also indirectly leads to Hua Zixu's tragedy. Hua Zixu is also a freeloader. The loneliness, emptiness, and coldness during this period all turned into bad luck in the brothel later, which was revenge on Li Ping'er. The price of revenge is that he will be wiped out in ashes, which will serve as an annotation for the fickle world. In the name of the 10 hot brothers, the Hua family's treasure flew over the wall and was buried deep under Simon's bed. It was just like when Li Ping'er and Simon King bumped into each other. It was destined. Yinzi also had eyes and knew how to throw himself into his arms. Strangely, Li Ping'er said to Simon King, "You are the doctor's slave." What Li Ping'er lacked was a sense of security. What Simon King calls medicine is half and half to Li Ping'er. Half of it is physical satisfaction, and half of it is the physical filling that replaces the psychological emptiness. Li Ping'er has a clear sense of emptiness, as if she has a vague life experience. I only know that during the Lantern Festival, people gave me a pair of fish bottles, which was the origin of the bottles. It can be seen that the family background was still good at the beginning. As for how she fell into trouble and became a concubine, it is like Qin Keqing's origin in A Dream of Red Mansions, which cannot be traced and is vague. These two people are so similar. They are all passionate ones. Qin Keqing had an affair with his father-in-law, while Li Ping'er had left Liang Zhongshu and was joining Hua Gonggong. Jia Rong and Hua Zixu have become friends respectively. As husbands, their presence is extremely weak. On the contrary, the father-in-law gave everything he had. When he died later, the funeral was equally elaborate. The funeral of Qin Keqing in A Dream of Red Mansions was as lively as that of Li Ping'er in The Plum and the Golden Vase, both of which were full of color. In terms of narrative function, they also play the role of dream enlighteners. It completes the metaphysics from the bottom up for the work. It's just that Qin Keqing's dream was further transformed by Cao Zukin and he had a thorough understanding, while Li Ping'er's dream still settled in the world. However, the failure of their entrustment leads to the same goal through different paths. Both Wang Shifeng and Simon King continued to sing. After watching Jin Ping Mei and then watching A Dream of Red Mansions, you will find that the two are inextricably linked and understand the essence of literature. Studying fiction as a reflection of history does literature a disservice. It's off topic. It can be seen from his birth that Li Ping'er was destined to not be able to achieve success in his life, and he was also destined to die early to achieve success. Heat encounters coldness, and between hot and cold, the heat and coolness appear. Of course, Li Ping'er is not the only one who lives in Yanliang. In fact, there is also Simon King. He was about to build a house, garden, and welcome new people. Unexpectedly, something unexpected happened. Something happened to the in-laws. At this time, Simon King was rich but far from expensive. Without a strong backer, all the wealth can be wiped out in a matter of seconds. This was a wake-up call for Simon King, which later led him to enter an official career and cling to politics to support Tai Shikai. Simon King's insecurity is exactly the same as Li Ping'er. After understanding that Simon King later confessed his son to Grand Master Kai, it is logical to understand why Li Ping'er went against the idea and wanted to marry Simon King. and said that she was willing to die even if she stayed at Simon's house for one night. Power has always been the best aphrodisiac for men. After gaining power, men turn back to sex to seek reality, which is a way to demonstrate their sense of existence. Therefore, successful men often have 3 wives and 4 concubines. Conquering women is equivalent to sleeping with the world under them. Especially a woman like Li Ping'er is of even greater significance to Simon King. Li Ping'er is a person who has seen big events. He once lived in the upper class and has a good family fortune. On the contrary, Simon King was just a local rich man. Simon King felt guilty when he inquired about the secrets of Li Ping'er and Hua Zixu. Li Ping'er knew this well and dispelled Simon King's inferiority complex by belittling Hua Zixu. Simon King implanted the medicine deep into Li Ping'er's body and gained the perverted pleasure of toying with Liang Zhongshu. He was eunuch and clapping her hands. As for Li Ping'er's good intentions, it was already apparent that she had brought the pearl with her when Liang Zhongshu fled. As for why he suddenly became foolish and died innocently later on, it was the result of being temporarily satisfied with his sense of security and placing his trust in nothingness. It's also something to talk about later. It can be seen that this description of sex in Jin Ping Mei is never just a single sex. Sex as a metaphor is actually a property. However, when Li Ping'er, who regarded Simon King as medicine, learned from Zhang Zhushan that Simon King was being sued, he remained silent, pondered for a long time, and secretly stumbled. Obviously, money still comes first. Only with money can you feel safe. Just imagine that Meng Yulu is also rich and healthy. However, after marrying into Simon's house, he never used sex to please her. And because of Li Ping'er's lack of pampering, Simon King was pushed to Pan Jinlian instead. Sex and property are certificates of residence, but they are not talismans of residence. This is fundamentally different from Pan Jinlian. Pan Jinlian uses sex as her capital. The difference between Meng Yulu and Li Ping'er is that while Meng Yulu seeks a sense of security, he is always a bystander, so it is natural for him to marry Li Yan'e after Simon King's downfall. And Li Ping'er later put down all defenses and was captured, because he completely regarded himself as a member of Simon's family. When he was dying, he said something to Simon King. Just like a virtuous wife, her lingering relationship was still a family matter after her death. This was the root of her completely different personalities, the source of its tragedy. It's no wonder that Simon King is still worried about Li Ping'er's death. In Li Ping'er, he tasted the taste of family, an emotional belonging that no one else, including Wu Yunyang, had ever given him. It can be seen that the sense of security Li Ping'er seeks is to have a family. Therefore, it explains why after hearing Zhang Zhushan's words, he immediately agreed to recruit Zhang to join him. This is why Pan Jinlian could wait 3 months to marry into Simon's family. While Meng Yulu refused to listen to Uncle Zhang's persuasion, Li Ping'er could not wait. In any case, Meng Yulu and Pan Jinlian have experienced the feeling of playing house to some extent. They both have roots and have a touch of calmness as a background amidst the cramped situation. Therefore, Li Ping'er, who was sleepless and alone, dreamed of a fox getting sick and was depressed and sick. This was a reflection of his loneliness in life, and also reflected his regret for the past. The consciousness of repentance in life completely distinguishes Li Ping'er from Pan Jinlian. Therefore, Li Ping'er later asked Feng's mother to burn paper to pay homage to her late husband Hua Zixu. And later she repeatedly dreamed that Hua Zixu was asking for his life. Logically speaking, careful reading of each chapter should not involve the aftermath. However, the antecedents and consequences also need to be said. A few words here. Let's see that Li Ping'er, whose life was hanging by a thread at this time, met Zhang Zhushan. Now, it's time to enter the second half of life. Since there is no way out for those who eat soft food, why not raise a soft food person to pave the way for recruiting Zhang Zhushan? Zhang Zhushan added a comic color to a cold book, Jin Ping Mei. His little calculations and tricks clearly reveal the ugliness and pedantry of the scholars of that era. His thorough analysis of the cause of Li Ping'er's disease and his ignorance of his own stupidity are exactly the same as Li Ping'er's shrewdness at first and later his ignorance. When the two supported each other and expressed their love for home, their longing for home was touching. When Li Ping'er opened the door for Zhang Zhushan to open a herbal medicine store, the home in her mind was about to come out. No, Zhang Zhushan even rode a donkey when he went out. Shared bikes always belong to others. Although Baojun is not BMW, it belongs to our own company. But can he give Li Ping'er a home? Let's just ride on the donkey and read the songbook, and we'll see. A closer look at chapter 18 of Jin Ping Mei. If you want to truly see yourself clearly, you still need a relationship. The beginning of this chapter is that Simon King first paid filial piety to Caillou with 500 shi of white rice, and then bribed Li Bangyan, the Minister of Rights, with 500 taels of gold and silver, and changed his name in the crime book to the ironic GAU. Integrity, that is, fake incorruptibility, barely escaped disaster. Often when we read this passage, we find it incredible. Why is such a high-ranking official in the imperial court so blind, so easily taken over by a businessman from a 4th or 5th-tier city? In fact, in the Ming dynasty, this kind of behavior was not surprising. Officials in the Ming dynasty were notoriously low salary, with the official salary for a first-class official being only 87 shi meters. Gray income from bribes and gifts was tacitly tolerated by the court society. Simon King. Just act according to the unspoken rules of society. After Simon King got away and had some free time, he thought of Li Ping'er. He once promised her to enter the house in a sedan chair and be a mandarin duck with her for a lifetime. She honestly entrusted him with all her valuable belongings, 30 or 40 pounds of agar wood, 200 pounds of white wax, 2 jars of mercury, and 80 pounds of pepper, and asked him to exchange them for silver to build her a house. You should have married this slave earlier. No matter which slave you choose, I will be willing to help you fold the quilt and make the bed. If I marry a slave and live in your house for a day, I will be willing to die. It's inconvenient for you to come and go, so don't leave me here to watch day and night. Giving money and people, being petty and humble, and being as humble as Simon King's heel, it really has to be him. Unexpectedly, within a few days, she would not be able to hug Zhang Zhushan, and she married Zhang Zhushan with lightning speed. When Simon King met Li Ping'er's nanny on the street and felt good about himself and said he wanted to see her, the other person said in exchange, a marriage that is done, and the meal is taken care of. Simon King was frightened and asked, "Is it possible that he got married?" The word frightened was used very cleverly. It was not only a surge of intuition, but also a fear that the thing he was most afraid of in his subconscious would happen. She cares. When he heard that he was marrying Zhang Zhushan, he immediately felt insulted. As a man who once owned Li Ping'er, he felt that even he had been brought down. It is not good to marry anyone. Marry that short bastard. He rode home, feeling lost all the way. I think he did the same to Pan Jinlian back then, leaving her at home for 3 months while he married Meng Yulu first. Wasn't she crying and shouting to follow him when he turned around? But Li Ping'er, who seems to have the least temper and lets herself be squashed and rounded, why does she know that something is not working for her? How could he lose her? Can you blame Li Ping'er for this? Simon King's mistake was that she was too conceited, thinking that if the golden hairpin fell into the well, she would be killed. It was understandable that there was an accident at home, so he could not hear any news, but he quietly asked Diane to pass a message, saying don't worry like Jia Bao you did, or tell her to wait and see if there was an accident at home. Is it okay to give Li Ping'er some reassurance? At the same time, he also made the mistake of being too ignorant and overestimating a woman's patience and endurance. Simon King thinks that his world is very big, but women only occupy a limited area. But she didn't expect that for Li Ping'er. The only person in the world at this time was Simon King. His sudden disappearance and no news made her collapse. A woman who lacks a sense of security will seek medical advice in a hurry. Even if Butcher Zhang is dead, he won't eat pigs with hair on them. Who in this world can't live without whom? Classmate Simon King was dumped. This is really local news. After all, he is known as the leader who cheats women and beats his wife. When he is in a bad mood, the women in his family will suffer. When he came in, his 3 wives and daughters were playing on the horse jumping rope at home. They all retreated when they saw him coming back. But Pan Jinlian deliberately showed off in front of him, holding onto a pillar to carry her shoes. This pose is very glamorous. The moment you lower your head and hook your feet, your body curves are fully displayed. Many magazine models still use it today. It seems casual, but in fact it is charming and charming. But the problem is, how can the official Simon be in the mood to appreciate it now? He was so angry that he had no place to vent his anger. You didn't have the energy to hit the muzzle of the gun. It was difficult to resist the kindness, so he had to kick you twice. In Jin Ping Mei, it is common for Pan Jinlian to be beaten and kicked. He was beaten and beaten, but Simon King knew that there was nothing she could do. She cried and made a fuss, then turned around and kept sticking it up. This pair of good playmates are both hedonistic treasures, and their relationship is essentially one of support and dependence. Go to bed with a smile and get out of bed without thinking. Thinking about it, they are quite equal. Simon King only loves Pan Jinlian, but has no love and no respect. As for Pan Jinlian's relationship with Simon King, since she married him, it's not like you have to be the one. She has thought it through. Others felt sad when they saw her being beaten, but she was so arrogant that she turned around and went to hook up with her son-in-law Chen Jingjing without any moral burden. It can be seen that as long as people ignore morality, they can gain great freedom. However, 2 seconds after silently feeling sorry for Simon King, she was raped again. Obviously, Pan Jinlian is particularly good at leveraging force. I was beaten by Simon King, and I felt unhappy. I complained in front of Wu Yunyang, the main room, but Wu Yunyang pushed me back. Who told you to just laugh at him? If he doesn't beat you, how can you beat a dog? This is true. It's not very harmful, but it's very insulting. When she learned that it was Simon King who was worried about Li Pinger, Wu Yunyang couldn't help but make some insinuations and said to her, "A man who has not yet completed his filial piety is only one of those who marries in a wasteful way. Now it's the other way around, not insulting. Big and extremely harmful." Meng and Pan were so ashamed that they went back to their rooms. Yunyang is a pryte. No wonder Pan Jinlian holds a grudge against her. So, within a few days, while Simon King still couldn't let go of Li Pinger, Pan Jinlian made a plan to divert trouble to the east. What did I say in the first place? Put down the rice first and eat first. You didn't listen and only came to ask the eldest sister. As the saying goes, trust the man's advice, but lose the gourd. You did something wrong? Who are you complaining about? These words awoke Simon King. Yes, at first, I miss Li Pinger because of what that woman said. His anger finally came to an end. Since then, Simon King has turned against Wu Yunyang and his wife, ignoring each other. At this time, Simon King was meeting relatives and friends without touching his feet, rolling up beams on sheds and building a house. He was so busy that he forgot about himself. But why? Viewers can always hear a sad groan from the bottom of his heart. I finally lost you in the crowded crowd. The scumbag man was scumbag, and his sadness was of course a joke like I hunt geese every year. But now my eyes are pecked by geese, but it is also very pitiful. A person who has never lost his heart has even lost his heart. It turns out that things will be discovered later. Maybe everyone is like this. To truly see yourself clearly, you really need a relationship. A closer look at chapter 19 of Jin Ping Mei. Let's see how Simon King vents his anger. Let's talk about the first chapter of Jin Ping Mei. When introducing Simon King, he first said that his father Zimanda traveled around Sichuan to sell medicinal materials and opened a large herbal medicine shop in front of King County. Although the family is not very wealthy, it is still a well-to-do family in King County. The positioning is very clear. Simon King is a child of a well-to-do family. But unlike his father, who worked hard to get rich, Simon King has a free and unrestrained temperament. When his parents were alive, he didn't study much and spent all his time wandering around. After his parents died, he slept among flowers and willows, stirring up trouble and making friends. The friends he made were all idle people who did not abide by their duties. Readers are used to this cliched beginning. There are many such prodigal sons in old novels, and the fact that storytellers love to tell them like this means that there is more market for such stories. However, the author of Jin Ping Mei did not follow the routine. Simon King not only did not lose his family, but also made the family business bigger and stronger. Later, he broke through the class and became the deputy Keanu of King County's punishment court. He did not grow up to be a prodigal son, and for a time he was able to honor his ancestors. From this perspective, Simon King can indeed be regarded as an elite of the civilian class. There are two differences between Simon King and the playboys. First, he is ambitious. Second, he has a cunning scheming worthy of his ambition. He was mainly engaged in the business of herbal medicines, and at the same time, he released official debts. And he also had access to the foremost traitorous officials in the court. In terms of loan sharking, his business partners or connections have already caught up with the powerful people in this central government. If Simon King is placed in a dream of red mansions, Simon King is the bottom-level agent who uses the family's monthly silver to lend money at usury to earn money for her private life. He would use gifts and other means to win over Lai Wang, so that Sister Feng's money could be handed over to him through Lai Wang. In the process, he gradually became close friends with Lai Wang, and the Jia family became his backer. How did Simon King find this way to make money? Of course, he knows that the powerful have the need to increase the value of their money. This is one. Simon King likes to take care of some official affairs in the county and argue with others to make money. This is the second. Follow the clues and feel the stones to cross the river. I found this business that can make money easily. This is something his parents could not imagine. Taking trouble is one of his joys in life. However, the greater joy is to find business opportunities in helping officials, big and small, to collect various kinds of money. Marrying a beautiful woman is his joy in life. However, the greater joy is to marry a beautiful woman. When you are a beautiful woman, you will make a fortune. What he looks for is nothing more than two things: money and connections. The author sometimes brings a little ridicule when writing about Simon King. For example, when introducing Simon King's son-in-law, he said, Chen Jingjing is the son of Chen Hong, the in-law of the 80000 strong imperial army in Tokyo. He also did not reject the humble helpers and became brothers with them, creating a momentum. Because no matter who you are, getting to know one more person means one more hand or one more possible resource. Before Chapter 19, Simon King had just experienced the most terrifying predicament since his birth. This predicament can be seen as the backlash or sequelae of his previous efforts to manage relationships and pursue money. Of course, China values the person who ties the bell must untie it. Simon King once again used his connections and money to help himself out of this predicament. Let's look at Simon King walking slowly on the street after getting out of the predicament. He suddenly discovered that Li Pinger, who had moved several boxes of belongings to the partition wall of his house, was married. The person he married turned out to be Zhang Zhushan, and he also opened a herbal medicine shop business. He was angry. What was he angry about? Simon King declared in question Li Pinger that Zhang Zhushan, a short bastard, dared to steal people from me. Li Pinger, I asked you to wait. Why didn't you wait? Maybe subconsciously, Li Pinger didn't get all the people and money. And there was an additional rival to grab the business. Is this because I'm in trouble? Do you think Simon King, am easy to bully? If Pinger marries someone like Zhou Xiaobai, Simon King will have to swallow his anger. However, now these two people, especially Zhang Zhushan, are poor and have no background. For Simon King, why he was so angry seemed to be just a technical problem. Of course, there are two ways to vent your anger. Either go into battle in person and fight and kill. Just like Qin Wu Yang. On the 12th year of the year, no one dares to disobey someone who kills someone in order to shock the surrounding people. Or find someone to do the work. Don't dirty your hands and don't ruin your social image. Simon King chose the latter. The former can make people around him feel that Simon King is not to be trifled with. However, King County is not a river or a lake after all, but a place where neighbors interact with each other and gather to live. Simon King likes to eat, drink, have fun, and stroll around the streets when he has nothing to do. Without Zupan's heroic spirit, how could he hope to lay landmines in interpersonal relationships with a number of powerful slaves protecting him? and Zhang Zhuxian dared to snatch Li Ping'er when he was in trouble, which also shows that Simon King is not extreme. At least he does not show his desperate image. He is not Zheng Tu in Water Margin, Zheng Tu ran a butcher's shop, nicknamed Jin Guangxi. The purpose of making money was to do whatever he wanted. He bought Jin Quilian from other places and signed a deed of sale, but the payment was a white slip. He later kicked him out and asked the Jin family and his daughter to paying back money is to bullying and can easily rouse the anger of chivalrous people. Simon King is not keen on being a bully. He really wants to do is to establish the Xiamen economic empire, expand his contacts as much as possible with the money in his hands, and then make more money through the expanded contacts. Zheng Tu only wanted to scare off the opponent with his bottomless operation. At first glance, he looked like a petty person, so he deserved to be beaten to death by Luda 3 times. Word of mouth among the neighbors was that Simon King was cruel to women, and that he was a leader who beats his wife, and a leader who demoted women. This sentence was said by Uncle Zhang and Zhang Zhuxian. However, readers know that Simon King rarely hits women. Of course, Jin Lian was beaten, and Jin Lian deserved to be beaten for cheating. This time, he also beat Li Ping'er, but what Ping'er did was really annoying. His beatings were not real, and no woman could bear it. Simon King always beat women with loud thunder and small rain, and then he was melted by their tenderness. Of course, he had kicked Jin Lian, Sui and the girls, but it was just a moment of anger. Objectively speaking, Simon King is really not as ferocious as the legend says. Why do the neighbors have such an impression of Simon King? Probably because they were afraid that their young ladies would be deceived by Simon King and fall into his trap. They tried their best to malign Simon King. Therefore, most of the time, Simon King behaves quite peacefully and leaves room for buffering when speaking and doing things. For example, regarding Ping'er, even though he was so angry that he slapped the table, hit the stools, and kicked Jin Lian at home, he still restrained his anger and did not rush over and beat Zhang Zhuxian. First, the reasons on the surface are not sufficient. Second, a person who strives to manage relationships will not be desperate at every turn. So he left the matter of venting his anger to two troublemakers, one nicknamed Snake in the Grass and the other nicknamed Street Rat. The two troublemakers acted very realistically, and they mastered the rhythm and heat very well. When Zhang Zhuxian reasoned with them, they played tricks with him. When Zhang Zhuxian played tricks with them, they played hooligans with him, throwing out Zhang Zhuxian's raw medicinal materials, punched Zhang Zhuxian a few times. Zhang Zhuxian played a gangster with them, and they argued with him about the law. They must have discussed it, or understood Simon King's method of playing. This is also the reason why the two troublemakers are respectful to Simon King. At first, he didn't dare to accept the 4 or 5 taels of silver from Simon King. No villain would dare to accept this tale of silver. When he blackmailed Zhang Zhuxian for the 30 taels of silver, he gave it to Simon King first. Dare to take it. Tricksters are not idiots. They destroy the orthodox moral system that educated people have worked hard to establish, but they must also obey the rules of survival in the gangster world. Among the two troublemakers, Lu Hua was simpler-minded and more straightforward. He was the one who rejected Simon King's piece of silver. He was the one who punched Zhang Zhuxian. And he was the one who personally held out the 30 taels of silver that he had obtained through blackmail. He trusts and even looks up to Simon King. Zhang Sheng is more knowledgeable about people and transactions. He was the one who persuaded Lu Hua to accept Simon King's scraps of money. And he was the one who took the opportunity to ask Simon King to solve his job. He thought of looking for a position at Dad Xia's place. This matter can be regarded as a small test. Just like Jing Shu said to Sister Fang, failing to do it will make Simon King look helpless. Zhang Sheng's target was Jia Tisheng, and he ended up entering the garrison. The author only gave a brief explanation and then continued to advance the plot, but a good novel can withstand readers' pondering. As a result, either Jia Tixing was not short of people and Simon King asked Zhou Xiaobai instead, or Simon King deliberately gave Zhang Sheng a step up. No matter what the situation is, it shows that Simon King has an extraordinary interest in this matter. Nothing else, if it is a small matter and cannot be handled well, for Qiaozi, it means that there is a problem with his capital chain, cracks in his relationship with the government, and his operational ability has declined. If he wants to control these things in the future, people are basically out of business. Simon King was so angry that he dropped the matter. The author clearly tells readers that in the matter of Li Ping'er and Zhang Jushan, Simon King did not intend to kill them all. However, the relationship between Li Ping'er and Zhang Jushan is not monolithic. Ping'er's experience has determined that she no longer believes in men's sweet words or cautiousness. What she wants is a real sense of security. Speaking of which, women in Jin Ping Mei lack a sense of security. Like Golden Lotus, Ping'er also passed through the hands of different men. The sense of displacement may be the most tiring for them. However, the difference between her and Jinlian is that Jinlian longs to live delicately, while Ping'er longs to live delicately. Simon King ignored her, and Zhang Jushan came to him. She thought he had power, so she married him. Speaking of which, whoever has the power is the medicine in the bottle. Ping'er's desire for power exceeds everything else. She belittled Zhang Jushan and praised Simon King. You are the sky, and he is a brick. You are above the 33 days, and he is below the 99 earths. Don't say that you are a superior person. Only you every day. He has never seen anything rare for daily use in hundreds of years of life. How can he compare it to you? Rather than boasting about Simon King's knowledge, it is better to say that Ping'er admires Simon King for his huge wealth and broad connections, and presents a charming power that is superior to other males. On the other hand, as a woman, Ping'er is not temperate, and she also has a kind of pity and resentment for the idle resources of her body. She simply drove Zhang Jushan away. This change was unexpected by Simon King. He originally thought that Ping'er and Zhang Jushan would not give up and would definitely conspire to sue him and get the previous box back. Of course, he was not afraid of them. However, Ping'er gave in and became angry again, so he agreed to the marriage, but did not hold a ceremony, did not arrange for anyone to meet her, and did not come to her room within 3 days. Li Yu once complained about the woman, saying that if a man marries an ugly woman, he can go out and look for flowers, but the woman has no right to even complain. He taught a woman a trick. If she is born with a beautiful face, she will definitely marry an ugly man in this life. When she takes off the hijab, she will see that it is not so miserable and she will feel happy. The so-called method of reducing desire. This is a good idea, however, for women like Jinlian or Ping'er. Firstly, they have no chance to get Li Yujin's biography. Secondly, Li Yu has never really experienced what it is like to face an ugly husband every day, so his advice has little practical value. This may explain from the side how difficult it is for women to settle down in the back house. For Yulu, her trouble is not that Simon King is ugly and cannot be compared to her, but that Simon King takes concubines one after another. However, she has the determination to remain quiet and elegant. When I returned to Yulu, I saw Jin Lian and Chen Jingjing flirting in the garden. So she shouted, "Fifth sister, come here. I'll talk to you." He came out to persuade Yunyang. "Sister, you are the head of the family. If you don't go to greet her, your father will be offended." Such a woman was eventually married by Li Yan'e and became his wife. I think this is a gift from fate to Yulu. However, there are too many women for the author to range. Ping'er was frustrated by Simon King's neglect and hanged herself. Was rescued. On the night of the 4th day, Simon King came to her room and beat her with a whip. However, just like the cute Saika deer with big watery eyes in the park, her fragility quickly conquered Simon King. Perhaps the words of Haruki Murakami can be used to describe the two of them. Everyone has a forest of their own in their hearts. Those who are lost, and those who meet will meet again. Chapter 19 is nearly 1/5 of the book. At this time, Simon King is still some time away from becoming the deputy 1,000 households in King County, and his business territory is still expanding. Before that, all the background that needs to be explained is explained. All the characters who were supposed to appear appeared on stage, and the protagonist learned the lessons he needed to learn. Then the curtain opened and the excitement of summer began. Cao Zukin, the author of A Dream of Red Mansions, is also a novel about worldly affairs. He focuses on the vague collapse of order and human relations in society under the poetic philosophy. While Xiao Zhaosheng, the author of Jin Ping Mei, is obsessed with describing the ice cracks in daily life, including human selfishness and cruelty. No one has anything to do with good or evil. There is only a competition and game of interests. But sometimes we can see Simon King's warm light overpowering the despicable darkness. This kind of writing is in perfect contrast with The Shape of Bao in A Dream of Red Mansions. Bao was not entirely innocent. He also had the habit of kicking people when he got angry. He was also frivolous enough to recognize a young man like Jia Yin as his son. He also had the habit of eating the rouge from other people's mouths just by looking at Yuan Yang's snow-white neck. Just as Jia Bao rejected official career economy, Simon King rejected poetic spirituality. He cut off all the restrictions that were not conducive to his establishment of the Ximen economic empire. Including the short-sightedness of a small fortune means a lot that modern people sometimes have a hard time avoiding. This is indeed courageous and far-sighted for a civilian elite. A closer look at Chapter 20 of Jin Ping Mei. Here lies the art of jealousy and the power of wealth. Then at the end of Chapter 19, it is said that the women in Simon King, with all kinds of complicated emotions, wanted to watch a lively beating drama. But Li Ping'er used her unique tenderness and humility to after subduing the furious Simon King. The next step was naturally tenderness and sweetness, and he talked happily over the wine. I asked Chen Mai to go into the room and put the table, and go to the back to get the wine. Li Ping'er breathed a sigh of relief in his heart, and walked out the door. These snoops and voyeurs were no longer calm. You know, the women in Simon King, except for the prostitute Li Jier and the most insignificant Sun Zui, are all eagerly paying attention to the most explosive gossip in the history of Ximen Mansion. Let's look at Jin Lian and Yulu entered his room from Simon King and stood at the corner door to eavesdrop on the news. His side was closed again, and Zi Chunmai was waiting in the yard alone. Jin Lian and Yulu opened the door and went in. I looked round and saw that there were lights and candles in the room, but I couldn't hear what was being said inside. Seeing the level of concern, I wished I could take Chunmai's place and listen to her. Chunmai is really a conscientious eavesdropper, Chunmai told the two of them through the door. Why did my father teach him to take off his clothes and kneel down? But he refused to take off his clothes. My father was angry and whipped him several times. Jin Lian said, after beating him, did he take off his clothes? Chunmai said, when he saw that his father was angry, he panicked, took off his clothes and knelt on the ground. Now my father is asking him something. Yulu said I'm afraid Simon King heard it and said, fifth sister, let's go over there. He pulled Jin Lian to the west corner gate. Ming San always had a sense of reserve with the overall situation in mind. Unlike Pan Jinlian, who was so eager to ask for details with a pale face. As soon as she heard that Li Ping'er was being interrogated on her knees, Pan Jinlian hurriedly told Yulu something strange and despising Li Ping'er, which sounded particularly interesting. My sister only talks about delicious fruits, and she only wants to come here. He didn't move, and he had already been punished by these few blows on his body. I am such a disobedient guy. If you go along with it, he will be defeated. As a twisting orphan candy, if you are twisting, it is money, and if you are not twisting, it is money. Sister, how long have you been here? And you still don't know his character. He is such a sharp-tongued little pan, and his words are so vivid and lively. When reading this paragraph, you can almost imagine Pan Jinlian's proud and smart look standing under the shadow of the moon. The image is very strong. Who knew that the painting style would change next? The beating stopped, and both women were no longer calm. Chunmai later asked for wine and fruit, and the two of them complained about it. Pan Jinlian said, he is serious, and he is as lazy as death. He has to go on some errands, drill and find holes, and go quickly. Meng Yulu also complained. My eldest girl Langshang, am making him do the work, and he'll be fine. Dad makes him do evil things and listen to others. Look at how fast he walks. Is this really just a weird girl? There is clearly an overtone. Who is this girl serving by running so fast? Of course it was for the newcomer Li Ping'er. Pan Jinlian had always dared to bite, scold and be jealous, so she sounded hateful. Meng Yulu complained, on the one hand, to cater to her, and on the other hand, for the sake of the love in his heart. It feels vaguely uncomfortable. At this moment, another girl Yuxiao appeared. Whose girl is Yuxiao? Wu Yunyang's. After all, Meng Yulu was more thoughtful than Pan Jinlian. She asked Yuxiao a very clever question. Does your mother know that you have come? Yuxiao replied, I sent my mother to sleep for the day. And I came to the front. Look, I just saw Chen Mai asking for wine and fruit. Do you think Wu Yunyang can really fall asleep peacefully so early? Li Ping'er had just hanged herself, and Simon King entered the room aggressively with a riding whip. Wu Yunyang, the principal wife who was angry with Simon King, had already gone to bed early. Is it possible compared to Pan Jinlian's harsh words and Meng Yulu's reservedness? Wu Yunyang used her go-to-bed early indifference to perform a higher level of jealousy. People wouldn't come to snoop around, but Yuxiao and Xiao Yu's back and forth had already demonstrated Wu Yunyang's true level of concern. Besides, Wu Yunyang's current situation is rather embarrassing. She needs to win a battle to defend herself. Although Pan Jinlian was showing off her teeth and doing evil things secretly, Wu Yunyang now felt that Xiao Pan was just a child, and that her real opponent was actually the silent Li Ping'er. She found that Li Ping'er was the one who could capture Simon King's heart. Obviously, she understood her man's potential too well. She loved women, and even more loved the money that women brought. Women who could bring endless wealth to the family. This is Simon King's true love. Now let's trace back to the reason why Simon King and Wu Yunyang had a cold war. It was because of what Simon King blurted out in front of Pan Jinlian. Leave it to him and teach that virtuous whore. Don't expect me to deal with him until tomorrow. But, like this, how did the private words reach Wu Yunyang's ears? A fool can figure it out even if he thinks about it. So Wu Yunyang probably already knew about Pan Jinlian's evil thoughts. Xiao Pan was very special. He would provoke people whenever he provoked them, without hiding anything. No, just when Meng Yulu was trying to persuade everyone to no avail, he threw a sharp sentence at the newly arrived Li Ping'er. The eldest sister and his father haven't spoken to each other for a while. They are all here for you, in fact. Wu Yunyang had already been competing with Li Ping'er without her provocation. Wu Yunyang, like those nouveau rich wives today who find mistresses, cannot capture a man's heart. And having a little money is great. So she cares about her status and loves money more. Money is her sense of security. You will not forget that when Li Ping'er was not married before, the wealth under Wu Yunyang's bed almost belonged to her. But now that Ping'er is married, it may soon be returned to the original owner. This is hers. How could you be willing to let go of a heartache and watch the duck you got fly away? Therefore, when I saw Li Ping'er showing Simon King the countless wealth in her cage without any thought, I was really worried for her. She took out a set of golden buns and asked her sisters if they had some too. Simon King replied that they didn't have such gold ones. This is 9 taels of gold jewelry. Although the Simon King family is also the richest family in King County, they have never seen such luxurious jewelry. Li Ping'er could only own it because she was the wife and concubine of an official, but Li Ping'er is also very smart. She knew that she couldn't offside Wu Yunyang, so she asked Simon King to play a copy of Wu Yunyang's golden, inlaid jade guanyin pawn filled with charming distractions. At the same time, after Pan Jinlian woke up from being the exclusive favorite of Simon King, she grew up to be a little expert in making money and a little expert in provoking. Not only did she ask for a Jufengdi honor like Ping'er, but she also borrowed Pan Jinlian nodded to Li Ping'er, and cleverly induced Li Ping'er to tell Wu Yunyang that she had also made a similar gold inlaid jade. In an era when clothing and jewelry were used to distinguish status, Pan Jinlian successfully expressed Li Ping'er's thoughts, with the intention of being on an equal footing with Wu Yunyang. Could Wu Yunyang not be angry? Obviously, the wealth that Li Ping'er used to please Simon King and his sisters secretly turned into the fuse of conflicts. Li Ping'er is actually innocent, but this is how Wu Yunyang got into trouble with Li Ping'er. Let's see here. As the new daughter-in-law, Li Ping'er served tea to the sisters. In the morning, and how Yu Xiao and Xiao Yu took turns to tease her. The two of them said something to each other. It's a good fight. It's a good complaint against the flood. It's enough kowtow. It's a good cry. They were all ridiculing, which made Meng Yulu and Pan Jinlian can't stop. Laughingly, Ping'er's face turned red and white from embarrassment. She couldn't stand or sit still, so she went back to her room for half a day. What are the identities of Yu Xiao and Xiao Yu? Do you really dare to challenge the new Liu Niang? Isn't it just because Wu Yunyang was behind it? Even though she was the one who stopped her, why did these two people dare to be so powerful? Just like the kind sister who serves second sister Yu in a dream of red mansions dares to abuse her, she has the support of her master behind her. However, Li Ping'er, who had wealth, still had far more influence than the other concubines. Simon King set up a scene of drinking and congratulating each other, which showed us how powerful money is. Self-esteem is not a problem at all. As long as you have enough wealth, you can breed countless pandering scenes and flattering words. Huada surrendered and asked to be a relative, and actually sat at the first table with Wu Yunyang's brother Uncle Wu. The eloquent Earl Ying called him Huada, my dear relative. And what's even more amazing, he even sang a little tune. It's a match made in heaven, like a Luan and a phoenix and eternal reunion, husband and wife for generations to come. No wonder Pan Jinlian's little mouth shouted, "Sister, you are listening to the singing. My little wife shouldn't sing this routine today." He made a happy reunion. A husband and wife from generation to generation. Where did he leave his sister? Can Wu Yunyang not be angry? In the middle of drinking, Uncle Wu probably felt threatened. He went into the room and said something heartfelt to Wu Yunyang. "You and your brother-in-law don't talk for a while. I am determined to persuade you. Sister, if you wait like this, all the good things you had in the past are gone." Since ancient times, idiots have been afraid of their wives, and virtuous women have been afraid of their husbands. 3 obediences and 4 virtues are the normal way of women. From now on, don't stop him from doing anything he does, and he won't let him do it anymore. Only by being a good gentleman can you show your virtue. The implication is that you have to find a way to reconcile quickly, otherwise your status will be in trouble. In fact, why is Wu Yunyang not clear in her heart? The few words he said sourly revealed the panic and uneasiness deep in his heart. He has his rich sister, and he treats me, a poor official's girl, as if he is dead. However, is she willing to admit defeat easily? She is the eldest sister and the protagonist in this palace fight drama. Can she be defeated like this? Of course, Wu Yunyang is different from other concubines. She wants to find a perfect counterattack opportunity that suits her status. Therefore, Lanling Zhao Xiaosheng seemed to understand her feelings for her, and worked hard to arrange a vigorous romantic story at the end of this chapter. The high-ranking officials from Ximen made a big fuss in Lichen Courtyard, and the prostitutes also became jealous of the prostitutes. Look! This is the beauty of it. It is also the description of how the bitch is so unrighteous, and how he encounters his wife in the cold and snowy night, burning incense and making tea to pray for him to have children. That can rouse the guilt and pity of the high-ranking officials in Ximen. Without comparison, how can we tell who is affectionate, who is unrighteous? Wu Yunying and Ximen King will take this opportunity to reconcile. However, a new round of battle for favor will never end.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.